Grande.
What is going on, everybody? Jon Impemba here with James Grande. Welcome into the Fantasy Time NBA DFS Playbook Show. It is a Monday here, James. It's got an 11-game main slate full of some pretty interesting news that we are waiting on here. A lot of injury news, a lot of status reports. We did just get a brief update that Charlotte Hornets situation there. Miles Bridges looking unlikely to be able to be active tonight after being denied entry into the country of Canada due to his past legal problems there. We already know that there's a boatload of potential guys out of the lineup for Charlotte tonight due to random illnesses and prior injuries here. We know the Indiana Pacers could potentially be on a 8 to 10 man rotation tonight based on who is in or who is out of their lineup. Not to mention all sort of the midday guys that kind of popped up throughout the day here as well. So big slate, a lot of problems that we're hoping to have resolved here soon.
Yeah, ongoing problems for Miles Bridges. Those are not slowing down anytime soon. Yeah, I mean, massive names on the injury report today. Joel Embiid, I know he went through shoot around. Tyrese Halliburton, both, and him and Miles Turner both questionable. De'Aaron Fox, he was a full participant in shoot around. LeBron and AD, Anthony Edwards, Killian Hayes, Clint Capella, Gordon Hayward, John Collins. I mean, there is no shortage of big time news that we're waiting for. And like the crazy part is, two of the biggest names we have not talked about all day, probably just because they've just been listed questionable since yesterday, Anthony Davis and LeBron. And we, expectation is they play, but that's 10:30. Like that's imagine they're out and you just have nobody to go to, and you were just like, so it's an interesting slate because despite all those guys being rolled out, there hasn't been a lot of guys ruled, or despite a lot of those guys being on the injury report, there hasn't been a lot of guys ruled out.
Right.
And you'll see that when we start breaking down the position, when we get under 5K, and we're just kind of like, not really much here. Let's move on, because there's not a lot of concrete value, and there is not a lot of
the value that could open up on this slate is also kind of gross. I mean, if everybody's out for Charlotte, right? Now you're going to play these guys by default, but I'll just like pull it up here for everybody. Like if Charlotte is out tonight, right? If Bridges we know is out, and Hayward ends up being out, and Washington ends up being out, you're going to be playing like what? Bouknight, Ish Smith. Nick Smith played a bunch of minutes the other day. Granted, they had guys in that blowout there. Bryce McGowan started. He'd probably be someone you'd have to throw in your lineup. You know that Brandon Miller's going to play 42 minutes probably. Terry Rozier plays 42 minutes. Nick Richards, as long as he doesn't fall out of this game, probably would play like 42 minutes as well. So, who's in, but then you got to really kind of weave your way through. Like, are you playing a lot of Thor tonight at $4,200? I mean, these very low usage players with very low floors that we've seen before, because there is really no value to be found on this slate. If you look at our rostership projections, I laughed when I saw that Andre Drummond was getting like 13% rostership tonight. I was like, people are playing over 10% of the field is playing a 12-minute Andre Drummond because there is nowhere else to go for value on DraftKings tonight. And they're like, you know what? In my GPP tournaments tonight, at his price tag, he's probably the only guy with like a 30, 40 put ceiling, right? Like, they're just going for it because what else are you doing here? Vince Williams is your chalk. It's over 60%. It's a tough slate. We talked about DraftKings doing this a lot this year as well, just kind of, being on top of these things. Now, good for them, better for or worse for us. Makes building these lineups tougher to do, competitive, and makes it a little bit more competitive as well.
Yeah, it makes it harder to get to the Lukas, the Jokic's, the Embiids, without looking.
You have to take some risks.
Yeah, without looking at an Andre Drummond and be like, he had 16 rebounds in 12 minutes one time.
Right? Like anything's possible, right? And all of our favorite value plays from, a week ago, where we've talked about it in the past, it would have taken them a month to move Tyree Easton's price tag. It took them 3 games, right? Like, they're certainly paying more attention to detail there. So we're going to break it all down for you guys. If you do have any questions, again, feel free to throw them in the chat. Our guy Dez is in here already, looking ready to go tonight. Albert's in here saying hello. I see through you, and to Prince all popping in to the chat. I put the playbook out already. That is, of course, will be updated with any breaking news. But if you are an All-Pro subscriber, you can go ahead and click that button right there. If you're not an All-Pro subscriber, well, you get a deal going on right now. It can save you 50% off the first month. You can scan that QR code, use promo code Let's Go. When you go to fantasyalarm.com/Let's Go, become an All-Pro member there. It's like $19.99 or something like that a month for the first month of the month pricing. You can check out today's playbook when you become a premium member, along with our premium Discord, where we're in there chatting away throughout the day there as well. Sean talking about it. What about the Daniel Theis revenge game? Again, you're along with Drummond, right? You're just sort of throwing them out there. Des saying he's hoping Miles Turner and Halliburton sit, so you get the value.
What value?
I mean, Isaiah Jackson. Isaiah Jackson's a little bit of value, but TJ McConnell's not. TJ McConnell's cranked up. So,
what value?
I guess on this slate, like a $5,800 McConnell is a value play, or a $6,000, $6,300 value play over on DraftKings. I think he's 58 on FanDuel is a value, but it's something. Let's get into it. Point guard position here, James. Luka and Halliburton are both questionable to play. With their illness, but probable for Luka here. And then Halliburton obviously questionable. SGA 10-5, Trae Young right there, 10K cover of today's live show. Donnie Mitch, point Donnie at $9,900. How are we feeling about the top tier point guard position?
I mean, it's hard to not like all of them. I don't think I'm going to be getting too much Halliburton at 11-1 if he plays. Not the best spot. Massive pace down spot for Indiana. So, that would probably be the one spot I'd avoid. We know we love to point Donovan Mitchell here. So, I know that game total is gross, but I could see myself getting to him at 99. The rest of the tier, I'm perfectly fine with. Obviously, Luka's been amazing against anybody that is anybody. SGA has been, even on nights where he doesn't shoot the best, 47 fantasy points, still won't kill you. And then Trae has just been on a different planet of late. So I'd get to anybody, really.
Yeah, I mean, I have Trae. I mean, Trae Young is obviously one of my favorites of the spot. You get Detroit. We talked about it. He's playing minutes even when they are in blowouts, whether it's a win or a loss. He's just out there for 35 minutes, chucking, and lately giving you 56, I think it was, over the last 4 games here. So good matchup either way. We know Detroit's the worst team in basketball, destined for yet another top lottery pick. Maybe they'll make the right decision this time around. Who knows? But they'll be right there to re-add to their young core. Miles Bridges officially ruled out, so we'll see if we get some additional. Nathan Mensah ruled out, so there goes.
Dude.
There goes more.
Holy smokes! They don't have anybody in this.
Nick Richards is playing 48. I said 42. He's playing 48 now. So yeah, maybe like Mensah being ruled out for personal reasons, put somebody else in the lineup, but small rotations here in Charlotte today. Speaking of small rotations, Charlotte, Terry Rozier's out here, probable to play. Played just 20 minutes in that Philly game there. They lost by 40. But already, generally routinely playing 40 minutes, played 40 against Toronto, went for 44 fantasy points. He won't come off the floor today.
Nor should he, as long as the thumb sprain isn't re-aggravated. I mean, he played the games prior to that blowout. Since returning, he played one game fewer than 35 minutes, and it was in basically a 25-point loss. He played 32 in that game. Every other game, and this was after 24 days in between games, 37, 40, 35, 40, 40, 39, 37, 39 minutes. As Terry Rozier minutes, he's just going to play. So it's hard to just hold last game against him when Philly's now blown 50 teams out in a row, and no, they're not playing fourth quarters, and it is what it is. He had a bad game, he got hurt, he left, he didn't come back, and so be it. But this is a good bounce back spot for him.
If they're down to 8 guys tonight, and like Hayward gets ruled out in that, like guys that could shoot on this team, Rozier might take 35 shots in this game. Like he might just play 1-on-5 against the Raptors here tonight. So I'm probably moving him up my board of exposure when building out some lineups here tonight, just for the pure fact of availability here. I also like Jalen Brunson at $8,600. You know, obviously hard to repeat 84 fantasy points. He scored only 39 against the Clippers. But again, I think that this is a game where going up against the Lakers, it feels like with Jalen Brunson, he's always a GBP play because there's going to be a good floor. You know, he's never going to really totally burn you, but then you know what he can be when he goes out there and knocks down the shots. So I don't mind Brunson at 86 if you need to save a little bit of money. Kobe White at 78. We talked Dinwiddie, the way he isn't playing right now, down at $7,500, also in that mid-tier range.
I don't want to just gloss past De'Aaron Fox. Just going to throw that out there. 9,600.
Yeah, I did that on the morning show as well. I just like missed around him, but he did go through the shoot around, so I guess he's more likely to play than not. So,
coming off what he's coming off, and like, you know, this is obviously blowout risk. Washington on the second leg of a back-to-back traveling. They were very competitive against Phoenix yesterday. That remains to be seen if they can do that in while the beam could potentially be lit in Sacramento, and that's obviously an issue. But I mean, look at De'Aaron Fox at home this year, 33, 7 and 4, 53 fantasy points per game, coming off 60 his last game. He's hit 60 a bunch this year. Don't want to go past him in this spot. Like, hard to get a pace-up spot when you're the Kings, but alas, the Wizards are playing that fast. So
I know
the only
Tyus Jones is playing the way he is playing, right? Anything.
Dude, keep him in the game. Keep him in the games, huh? Tyus Jones, keep him in games. Everyone else you mentioned, I love Dinwiddie tonight. Of the people you mentioned, really. He's just played big minutes like every time Dennis Smith Jr. has been off the floor, outside of a game that they got blown out and on the second leg of a back-to-back, or none of the starters even touched the floor in the fourth quarter. Jack Vaughn just emptied the bench. Still at 35 fantasy points in that game. The assist points, rebounds have all been there for Dinwiddie. So yeah, that would be my guy in the mid.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, like Embiid for whatever reason didn't play. You have Maxey here at $9,200 as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know your thoughts on Maxey. Anyways, he's obviously been good with Embiid in the lineup, but the way JoJo's been playing, pretty out of his mind here. Again, Kobe White and Dinwiddie for me also very much in the player pool here this evening. Again, there isn't a lot of value. You know, Des mentioned if Halliburton sat, you do have TJ McConnell at $6,300. I would definitely have interest in McConnell here if he started again, because we know what kind of player he can be. Even when he comes off the bench, he's an effective player, but he's not free anymore, right? He's $6,300, and I think on FanDuel he's like just under $6K. But for sure, somebody you can get to in your lineup. So, do you have any interest in Schroeder on the other side of that Charlotte matchup?
It's fine. He's it's a seesaw, dude. I mean, last 5 games, 21, 16, 48, 35, 18. Tell me when he's going to play well, and that second game was Atlanta, and he had 18 fantasy points and 5 fouls. Why has Dennis Schroeder been in foul trouble in 4 of the last 5 games? I don't know. I mean, it's sure tournaments, but it's very, 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 very hard to trust.
Mm-hmm. I'm with you. Again, it's hard to trust, but you know the matchup is kind of weird. You and I went back and forth a little bit before we went on air about Killian Hayes and Jaden Ivey. Hayes has been starting. Ivey's been getting the blowout run. Detroit gets blown out a lot. So, you know, what is the better play there? Is it the starter in Killian Hayes? Oh boy, Miles Turner out, Halliburton in tonight for the Pacers here. So, if you're looking for that Isaiah Jackson value, come on down because it's here. He's going to probably start at center tonight. You do at least have Halliburton, so that's kind of interesting, right?
Yeah, and I think what's going to probably happen, because we had the report earlier that Jarice Walker is in the G League and Oscar Tshiebwe is in the G League as well. I think there's 2 scenarios about backup center too, because Isaiah Jackson, although a great fantasy point per minute guy, super foul happy. we are likely to see Obi Toppin operate as the backup center, which we've seen before, which they could realistically do, but Zubats is a 7-footer. Or you see James Johnson, MMA savant, as your backup center. I think there's those two options. Neither great. Obviously, that would increase the play for Toppin and for
Neesmith.
Aaron Neesmith overall, because both those guys would benefit from Toppin moving positions. So, like Isaiah Jackson this year with Jalen Smith and Miles Turner off the floor, 1.35 fantasy points.
Yeah, he's been a monster.
That is, a monster. But again, he is very foul happy. Tyrese Halliburton with those two guys off the floor, 1.5 fantasy points per minute. So, like, you can. I don't love the Halliburton play at 11-1. I do think that's a little.
I like it only because I think it gives the Pacers a chance to be competitive, because I like the other side of this game.
Correct.
So
that's a good point. It's a good point.
Anyways, back to the Hayes Ivy conversation. Joel Embiid is still officially a game time decision with a hamstring injury. So excited for that news to come through. Now, Hayes himself is obviously on the injury report here, added this afternoon with an illness. So we don't even know if he's going to be active. Obviously, if he's out, full systems go here for Ivy. But if Hayes is the starter, you and I kind of went back and forth on this. Hayes has been playing. Ivy's been getting a lot of the blowout run. He played the final 18 minutes of that game against the Bucks. Would you rather the starter or the inevitable, minutes man when this game gets out of hand?
Maybe just the lower owned of the two.
Sure.
Because it's super hard to it's not hard to identify when Detroit's going to get blown out. It's pretty much every day. And in that scenario, the answer is Jaden Ivey, right? Like if that's the scenario you're abiding by, then it's Jaden Ivey. If you think the game's going to stay competitive, but also you look at Killian Hayes' last 4 games. He doesn't play in blowout, plays in blowout, doesn't play in a competitive.
Yeah.
So Monty Williams has no idea what he's doing. That's the head coach. How are we supposed to figure out what he's doing? Neither of them, for that reason, getting much ownership, and I can't blame the masses for not wanting to go there, because it's how do you? Take a shot on one of them, maybe, and you're you'll hit something, but it feels like unless we have definitive answers where Killian Hayes is out and we don't even have to worry about it, you just avoid the situation.
And then you play Marcus Sasser. All right.
That is something, because he also played a lot of blood. He also got a ton of blood run. Also, just interesting nugget, by the way, with this Embiid news, John. Every time he is set, do you know who has started?
Marcus Morris.
Center. Marcus Morris ruled out. Just throwing that out there. Maybe we'll actually get Paul Reed in the starting lineup, and then Nick Nurse will start Mo Bamba. Can't wait. Yeah. Just throwing it out there. Just that, I think that is a little interesting wrinkle if Joel Embiid's ruled out, because we could actually see who should be the starting center when Joel Embiid's out. And
what they're gonna do is put Batum at the 5 and move Oubre into the starting lineup. So
Covington, Covington
Rocco,
5,
they
something.
It's something. Where's it going? Quickly is kind of chalky. You and I were talking about this as well. We know he can be in a tournament. He is not really killing you at $4,800 either if he gives you the 20 fantasy points. Now, you want at that price, you're looking for 24-ish fantasy points here. But a lot of people are getting to Emmanuel quickly here because of just the boom potential. But another guy that seemingly doesn't know what he's doing with his rotations right now is Thibodeau. So you wish outside of Randall and Barrett and Brunson, basically, it's been a weird kind of rub there. Any other guards with Lowry out? Does Richardson interest you at all here? Isaiah Joe, he's a shooting guard, but Isaiah Joe's getting love. Gilliard might start.
It's Gilliard. I guess it's how you make, and we talked about it on the podcast last night. It's Memphis has multiple avenues on what they could do with their starting lineup. One of them includes Jacob Gilliard, right? Starting. One of them doesn't. Right. The other one includes them saying hey, Desmond Bain, like tonight, we're one day away from Ja. Just give us 40 minutes of point guard tonight. The third, we've seen Concher as like their kind of point guard-ish guy. So like there's a few different routes they can go. I think whatever the decision is, we see Gilliard for 20 minutes or so because not going to predict blowout, but very tough game for Memphis tonight on the front leg of a back-to-back in Oklahoma City, right? Like that's just not a great spot for them, considering they're just so depleted. No John, no Smart, no Rose, likely no Biombo, no Luke Kennard. I mean, that's like 6 rotation pieces for them. So I think Gilliard 3,700. Do I want to play a chalk Jacob Gilliard him? Because there's 6 games at 7:30, and then there's 4 games at 9 or later, and they're at 8. They're the only 8 o'clock game. There's no other like news that's gonna break in that pocket. So probably
These are currently the top 3 projected players based off just a moment ago update. It's Vince Williams, it's Santi Aldama, it's Jacob Gilliard. They're all over 40%. So
yeah, it's Memphis, and that just goes to show you nothing has changed since the beginning of the day because the only news that's come out is Charlotte and now the latest and now the Indiana news. Yeah, so like and one of them didn't help the value. One of them erased any value that was Indiana had because they were priced up to begin with. I would say if I am building, let's just say this, if I am building 20 lineups tonight and Jacob Gilliard was 50%, I would probably be around the field with that. Because as it currently stands, as if nothing else were to break our way, I would be with the field on the Gilliard.
Sure. Over at shooting guard, Donnie Mitch, as we talked about, you can get to Desmond Baines at $8,900. You know, everybody's playing all the value. I mean, if you think Baines can be out there trucking for 40 minutes, he's $8,900 here. DeJounte 87. We have a returning Tyler Hero now. He's 83 on DraftKings. He's only 73 on FanDuel. Is that price more palatable for you?
Yeah, it's more palatable. It's still just not a spot that I'm like looking to.
Okay. Paul George 81. Cameron Thomas coming off of a big day at 73.
Dude, the Paul George price is incredibly interesting because he finally found the stroke last game in a game that he didn't even get to play the fourth quarter in or extended run in. And the peripheral Paul George was back. This is the best price tag we've had him at all year long. As you mentioned, Tyrese Halliburton playing does make this game a little more appealing, although Vegas doesn't seem to believe so. Actually, it does. The line's moving in favor. Also, John, I don't know if you've seen the line movement on this game. Have you seen it?
Yeah.
249.5 since the Halliburton news.
People are coming in on it, man.
Yeah, it opened at 241. It's now at 249.5. It's moved half a point in favor of Indiana. There's a lot more to like here. You're putting the Clippers, who we already loved. We were talking about it last night, how much we love the Clippers. The cover of both, I think the morning show and the playbook are both Clippers.
Yep. Paul George on the morning show, Kawhi Leonard on the cover of the playbook today.
So, like, not a secret that we like the Clippers here. It does make it more interesting. It does make it more appealing that this total is moving drastically upward. So, yeah, Paul George, 8,100. One of my favorite plays.
I still don't even really know how the Pacers stay competitive in this game, but
just made shots. Space the floor, make shots.
Yeah, I mean that's like, because I feel like if you match this up talent for talent, the Clippers win, right? Do the Pacers do the Pacers have the best player in this game?
Not with current. I don't know if the dude, we have the Terminator back. Like Kawhi has been. Okay. Fair question. Yeah. Maybe like full body of work this year. Halliburton has been better. We also have the IST runner-up in the Indiana Pacers. They also like the Pacers have good wins.
Sure.
They beat the Bucks twice. You know,
they beat the Celtics.
They beat the Celtics. Yep. I mean, like they're they're a better team than we expected because they're historically good offensively. They're not good
No, they're terrible
defensively. Like,
defensively.
and now their best interior defender, maybe their best defender in general, not
Right.
there in Miles Turner. So I mean, you're right. But even if they do have the best player, the Clippers have 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6. In like if Zubats is like in that equation too, because now Zubats is matching up against Isaiah Jackson. So like, um,
Yeah, I just thinking about like what's the wing defense going to be on George and like Bruce Brown, Matherin, Heald, Toppin, Neesmith. Like that doesn't feel like Killian Hayes is officially out on Monday. So
it's good news for Jaden Ivey. So you should get Jaden Ivey starting. You should get Marcus Sasser playing the backup.
Clint Capella in. So any questions on the Hawks back front court there being answered? DeAndre Hunter is also in tonight as well. So he did play the other day. He returned, but was listed as questionable. So good to get some clarity here before the start of that game, because the Atlanta game was 7:30, so they didn't have to give that Detroit game didn't have to give us that info right away. So good to have it here. All right, where else are we going here? The shooting guard beside. Are you off Monk now that there's a Fox likely back here?
Yeah, 68's a little probably priced out a little too much
there. Where else are we going? Tim Hardaway Jr. Do you have any interest in Buddy Hield or rather now?
So let's take a trip down Indiana. Let's see what Miles Turner outdoes for others. Miles Turner off the floor, and we'll take Jalen Smith off the floor. Buddy Hield, 0.88 fantasy producer, 20% usage rate. Do we get a bump in usage for Buddy Hield? Slight bump, 0.5% usage bump. The biggest bump without Miles Turner is actually to Ben Matherin.
Okay.
That is the biggest usage rate increase. He's also averaging over a fantasy point per minute without Miles Turner. I think that speaks to the as Paul says our screen is blurry. I think Paul just refresh your because I'm seeing it pretty good on my end. But maybe that's why it's blurry because it's my end.
Looks fine on my end. If you guys are having any troubles, anybody else, just type it in the chat and we'll try to figure out what we can do to help y'all here. But
I think the Matherin usage bump and like fantasy point per minute output does have to do with Toppin maybe moving to the center at times because they don't have a backup center tonight. It's James Johnson or it's basically Obi Toppin who we saw operate. So Ben Matherin would probably be the guy I'd the answer of which other Indiana guy. It would probably be Matherin for me.
Yeah, that's fine. Again, I'm just wondering if there's more minutes to be had for anybody, I guess, potentially with this rotation. Koulibaly is there at 5,900. We do like him. Norm Powell, somebody I'm still in on at $5,100. Does Oubre get any additional run with like Marcus Morris out or anybody?
I mean, we just don't know what Oubre's gonna can play because they're blowing people out every game. Like, who's to say he's not playing 30 minutes in these games? He's just, I mean, what if he's closing? I don't know. 5,400 is a pretty good price. If there's no Embiid, I definitely have a little more interest in Oubre for just usage.
Sure. Anybody else? We did have a mention of Cam Reddish earlier from Dez. Did you play Cam Reddish tonight? Again, always talking revenge games here.
Not a literal shot at 5,100. I don't even think if there's a fire, I think I'll just not play Cam. Like, I don't know. Cam Reddish could be the only one left. Sure. I probably won't play him.
You did mention Sasser. He got 17 minutes in back-to-back games in those blowouts, but obviously backup point guard run now available, backup two guard run available potentially there. Alec Burks not really just playing anymore, which doesn't make any sense because he was so good to start the year. I mean, just consistent as heck. And then all of a sudden they're like, yeah, we're done. We're done with Alec Burks. So we'll see what happens with that starting lineup, but we do expect Jaden Ivey now to be back in there. Small forward, you got LeBron. Yeah, we're on small forward now, Des. So we'll talk about Tyrese in here in a minute. Scotty Barnes, Kawhi Leonard, Jimmy Butler, Lauri Markkanen. Like, how you feel about the top tier? Any ones you're like for sure locking in tonight, James?
I mean, Kawhi would probably be first and foremost for me. I know you mentioned Bane last position. this Charlotte-Toronto game, I don't know what to make of because obviously there's a chance Toronto's just playing essentially the Charlotte like G League team, G League like second, third string guys like plus Terry Rozier and Brandon Miller. So obviously Barnes could have his way in really any capacity he wanted to if PJ Washington and Hayward were rolled out as well. LeBron's fine, 10-3. This is the most expensive he's been all year. Only second time all year he's been over 10K. So like, if you want to get to any of these guys, you can. I'm completely off. I mean, we know the Jimmy Minnesota story with like the third unit or whatever, but this isn't in Minnesota. I also don't care about narratives. So if you want to play it, you can. But Bam and Tyler Hero being back definitely doesn't help Jimmy.
No.
It's just Kawhi for me in this tier. Like, and Markkanen should see 30 plus minutes here. Another situation where like he's been limited the first game. They got absolutely demolished in the Sacramento game where they were down 30. And yeah, he played. It only looks like it was a 21-point loss, but that's that game was a rout. Who's to say he doesn't play 32 minutes in that game? So, Markkanen's fine, but it's really all roads lead back to the Clippers guys.
Yeah, agreed. Leonard and George here. As long as you wants to know our Triple J love, we always like Triple J. Always going to be a tournament play. You get Desmond Bain back, so maybe not as many shot attempts as he had the previous 2 games when he went nutty, but certainly they're going to be down some guys, and Bain's playing point guard. Could be leading to just a bunch of assists to Triple J on this slate against the Thunder here today. So, yeah, not a bad play. More small forward talk here, though. Obviously, Gordon Hayward, if he's in, will certainly have some exposure to. Brandon Miller, I think, at this point, feels pretty locked in, even at a $6,800 price tag. If they're just down all those guys, like he should have a ceiling shot attempt game. I like Bojan at $6,700 here as well. We've talked THJ. Tyree Easton's all the way down here at 6K. He is expected to play today. Probable. Played 30 minutes. He had 2 games of 27 when he broke the slate, going for nearly 10x. Even at these 2 price points and in production, he's been pretty good overall. Need about 30 fantasy points from him tonight to get you the 5x return. How do you feel about him going up against Cleveland here tonight, James?
I'm very on the fence about Tyrese at 6K. I'm not really worried about the minutes, I guess, anymore. Amen Thompson being out should be a few extra minutes funneling towards Tari Eason. He's usurped Jayshawn Tate and any Jayshawn Tate minutes. There were like some minutes that Eason got yesterday due to quick Jabari Smith Jr. foul trouble. So I'm not saying he's not going to play high 20s, but 30 again if Triple J and Şengün were to stay out of trouble seems maybe unlikely on a back-to-back, considering the only other back-to-back he played 21 in the front leg and then 17 in the back leg. And again, doesn't seem like those same minutes restrictions are obviously on Tari Eason, considering he did play 30 minutes yesterday. But that is messing with me a little bit, that one, there was foul trouble that he benefited from early in that game, and 2, he played 4 less minutes on the second leg and the only other back-to-back.
Yeah, for sure. I'm very curious to see how they handle him on the back-to-back, but I'm loving the recent run. And we know that he's a fantasy point per minute freak. So, we were talking about it. This 11-6, he basically had in the first rotation, and then he didn't really do too much in the second half of that game there. But with Cleveland, obviously no Evan Mobley. They're throwing Niang and Dean Wade and Okoro at you like that. That feels a lot like a second unit run for Tyree Easton out there, just dominating. So I'm in on Tyree Easton here tonight, Des, for sure. Personally, where else are we going? I mentioned Koulibaly, Norm Powell already. Do you trust Dylan Brooks, who's had back-to-back really good games here? Derrick Jones Jr., somebody that has thrived at times this year. I mean, where are we going next, man?
Well, I'm laughing because you put Dylan Brooks and trust in the same sentence. I can trust him to get in foul trouble. That's about it. I just want to point this out. Our good buddy, S. Mitchell 17, as some know him as. Some would know him as the Underdog King. Others would know him as Sean. Put in our Fantasy Alarm Discord, which you guys should all be a part of right now. Nick Nurse said that Joel Embiid's hamstring tightness popped up after today's shoot-around. for what that's worth, because he went through shoot around and we had that report. We did not get the report that the tightness popped up after, I believe. So that is worth mentioning. Really, really critical
Right,
information.
because it's not like he had the hamstring tightness and went through shoot around. He went through shoot around and then had the hamstring tightness.
Jordan Poole, but not in layup
Right.
lines. Like before.
Didn't Jordan Poole like step on someone's ankle or something like that? Wasn't that what he had?
Something, I forget what the exact Jordan Poole, it was something during the layup lines where he,
and then nobody said a word until after the fact. Appreciate everybody. Anyways, back to what I was saying. You have Brooks here, Derek Jones, Lou Dort we know is getting minutes, Isaac Okoro is getting minutes, Bryce McGowan's very likely starts. He's $5,100. Caruso's active for tonight. He's $5,100. Any interest in this range?
Yes. I play a lot of Derek Jones, and I'm probably going to keep doing that. The minutes are really secure. The depth kind of for Dallas is really depleted. I mean, they're missing Kyrie, Josh Green, Maxi Kleba, Derek Lively, like four key pieces of their every game rotation. And Derek Jones has responded by playing 30 minutes in back-to-back games. He averages 0.9 fantasy points per minute without all those guys on the floor, which pretty good. Like, especially for a guy who sits on the perimeter and shoots threes. It's actually 0.94. I forgot to remove Maxi Kleba off the floor in that scenario as well. It's pretty good. 5,300. We're scarce. It's scarce value. I wish he still had the small forward, power forward. That kind of hurts a little bit. But 30 minutes where he sits on the perimeter and waits for Luka to pass him the ball and catch and shoot situations. We've seen it like multiple times. Like, he has a game with 6 made threes this year. He has a game with like multiple games with 4 made threes. And we know about the ability to dunk over possibly any human on the planet as well. So he's never afraid to attack the rim either. 5,300 for Derek Jones feels.
Yeah, he's only $5,600 over on FanDuel as well. And he has the dual positional eligibility, as you mentioned, small forward, power forward over there. And you just look at some of those defensive stats, right? 2 steals, 3 blocks, 2 steals and two blocks, 2 steals or 2 blocks and a steal. Those all get added points over on FanDuel, and it's only $300 more. So I really like Derek Jones Jr. tonight over on FanDuel for sure. But obviously think he's a good play just overall on this slate. The chalk of the slate is Vince Williams. He's small forward only at $4,600. I mentioned last night, like if I had to pick one, I might go Roddy over him for $300 more just because he doubles up his shot totals. But obviously, Vince Williams more aggressive on the glass, giving you some blocks and steals, I guess. Like, I don't know. I don't love the guy, but how do you argue with 23, and 31 the last 3 games, right?
Yeah. I mean, you're absolutely correct when it comes to like expectations and of like shots and volume there. This team just, I mean, he started next to Roddy last game. He's played 26 minutes in 3 straight games. He seems obviously more like likely to double than Roddy does, and that he can make a few threes if he actually shoots the ball. He is what he is. Like, he is 0.85 fantasy points per minute this year. That's fine. He's 4,600. I'll say it like this. When we look through this tier at 4,600 just across the board, sub 5K even, there are maybe, how many guys on one hand under 5K can you say this player could play 30 minutes tonight?
On that team?
No, I'm saying under 5K on this entire slate. Like, there's not a lot of guys that you're like, can play 30 minutes, can actually
it'd be the
productive.
Charlotte guys, I guess. That's about it, though.
He may, yeah. But, like, even Bryce McGowan's is over 5K.
True.
So that takes someone off the board.
JT Thor's $4,200.
Yeah, but he's a 0. He could be. They could give us the Chris Davis MLB discount where he was $600 a few years ago, And JT Thor still might not hit value in that scenario, even if he played 40 minutes. So,
yeah.
Vince Williams is, I think, the better play between Roddy, but I also think there is a case to be made if you want to be contrarian. David Roddy is the contrarian small forward value on Memphis.
Yeah, that's again, Roddy just for the shot attempts for me. Also a first round pick. Already playing the minutes, but like 11, 9, 14, 10. He's just like not making the shots, whereas Williams is taking less shots but hitting them. But like Roddy's giving you decent rebounds, giving you some assists, giving you some blocks and steals. So it's all kind of the same. But if he ever goes 6 of 10 or 7 of 14 or something like that, hits at the same ratios that Williams is hitting, he's going to go for 35 or 40 fantasy points, where I don't think Williams can get you there. So that's just my perspective in tournaments, kind of where I'm looking at with him. Any other small forwards for you?
Unless there's more news, I don't think so. It is worth mentioning. Memphis does have Jake LaRavia back. He's played 15 and 10 minutes in back-to-back games. Mm-hmm. Now that he could just take minutes away from both the aforementioned guys, and we can all be sad together.
Yeah, well, that would be unfortunate. I mean, Sandy Aldama is super chalk tonight, and I don't know where his minutes are coming from. So
25. He played 25 last game, which is fine. I think his minutes are coming from the fact that Bismack is doubtful.
Sure.
So you are also losing. You lost Derrick Rose already, one starter. Bismack starting, so you could just move Jaren Jackson to the starting 5, and then you have Santi at the 4. That would be my assumption. Is
PJ Washington expected to play. There you go.
Well, I mean, at least somebody's playing, right? PJ Washington out there with Kirk Gibson up and down the floor, just limp his way, multiple injuries. Only use his right arm because it's a shoulder and a bicep injury. Like, we're gonna see the Jeremy Sohan free throw, but on all of PJ Washington's shots tonight.
Right. Let's see. Where else do we want to go? Power forward here. AD's got power forward eligibility now.
Yeah, he's had it for a couple games. Couple games now.
He's 10-4. Towns is 9K. Kuzma's 86. We talked about a lot about liking Kawhi Leonard. Pascal Siakam at $8,500. Then we've talked Triple J up a little bit here. Again, we're all in on the Clippers, guys, so that's no difference. I think my number 2 guy would be Siakam at 85.
Feels pretty good. We just need the peripherals from Siakam because scoring hasn't been really an issue. When we get the peripherals, we get the 50 bomb. When we don't, we get 38 fantasy points, and that's not going to do it at 85.
I agree. Anywhere else here in this top range?
Can't play Keegan despite the big game with De'Aaron Fox likely to return. Sadiq Bey 66 is a no thanks with everyone returning. The minutes should still be there, but meh. Jabari maybe. I mean, even he got through a game with foul trouble 20 minutes. Got the scoring up, got the rebounds went down.
Sure.
Of course.
Where does Washington now rank for you on this slate? On he's $5,900.
It's a good price.
Good price, and should play a whole lot of minutes.
Yeah. So the Charlotte front court is going to include PJ Washington, JT Thor, Nick Richards, and Leaky Black. Right. Those are the 4. Is Leaky Black with the team? Yeah, he's recalled. So that's their front court. So maybe you can get away with Hayward at the 4 if he plays, right? It's got PJ Washington. If the problem is what if the shoulder doesn't let him shoot the basketball, and they're just PJ, you need to get out there because we need 8 guys. We need to field a team. $5,900 is a good price. I'm okay getting to PJ Washington sub 6K with nobody active.
Yeah, I mean $3,400 here for him if he's the final way to some minutes here, but Washington's gonna have to be out there. If he's not good to go, I don't think they would stop. They would put him on the floor. So it's a price where it's obviously not even the best matchup. Obviously having to deal with Barnes and Siakam, but you gotta kind of put him out there. Naz Reid 61. We've talked a lot about Naz Reid lately. I mean, guy is just going off.
He's probably a little too much for me in this spot against Miami. But he hat tip to Naz Reid for being so good.
Sure. Is there anybody that you'd play over PJ Washington in this range?
Santi Aldama, probably.
Okay.
If he's in the starting lineup.
You think they start Triple J at the 5 and Aldama at the 4? Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't know what else they do. They cut Kenneth Lofton.
Yeah, which is weird. MVP of like the G League, wasn't he?
I guess they could, like, in theory, start Tillman, but he's kind of been out of their rotation lately. I mean, 7 minutes against Dallas and a 7-point loss.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe Tillman starts, but my assumption would be Triple J matches up with Chet pretty well, and then Santi, Vince Williams, Bain, and Gilliard.
I'm getting more news here. Rozier and Hayward out.
So, I mean, this is as bad as it's been.
Williams out, as we knew. So Peter Washington officially in.
Is this as bad as it's been since, like, COVID for one singular team? Like, this, we haven't seen a team this shorthanded since, like, when
it's been a bit
since COVID.
Feels like it's been a bit. Well, we had the day where we played all those Pelicans like a few weeks back, right?
Pelicans, yeah, but I think only Zion was out in that game.
We just played them because they were cheap.
Yeah, because they were cheap. It wasn't even Charlotte's just like, nah. All
right, so McGowan's is definitely starting then, right? Brandon Miller, Terry Rozier, Washington, Richards. So there's your starting 5.
Assuming they that's your starting 5, and then your 6th man is Ish Smith, JT Thor, Nick Smith. That's literally, and Leaky Black as your other big man. That's your rotation. Realistically, you probably don't even need to play Leaky Black because you just early sub like Thor for Washington or something, and then
sub Washington in
for Richards. Yeah, and you just keep that cycle going.
Or they all play 46 minutes.
Or they all play 46 minutes.
And you don't sub them anyways.
Yeah.
All right. Well, good to know. Good to know. Any other power forwards here?
I mean, this is going to be insane. Give me a legitimate interest 1 through 10 in JT Thor. $4,200.
2.
It's too higher than I would have. I said 1 through 10. He'd be still less than.
Wemby just got ruled out for tomorrow. Sad. 4-game slate. No Wembayama. The return of John Morant, though. So
That's the return of John Morant. That is true.
All right, let's go to center here, and then we'll build the lineup. Des want to know our thoughts if Joel sits, would automatically go to Vuk, or would we roll with the value of Paul Reed? How would we approach the center position?
I mean, you could play them both. That wouldn't be the best because they're both in a 7 p.m. game, but like Paul Reed, whether or not he starts, is going to play 20 minutes. He has in the games that Embiid sat.
Yeah.
And when you look at the numbers in the 3 games that he's played at least 20 minutes, he's given you at least 22 fantasy points. He'd be the chalkiest play of the slate with almost I don't even know if there'd be a question.
If Joel Embiid sits, how much Andre Drummond do you play? Joking.
Well, that is fair because for anyone who doesn't know, like Drummond and Embiid have like a beef going back.
They do have,
years and years and years. So, yeah.
All right, so I wrote in the playbook Embiid up as my top center. Obviously, if he sits, I pivoted down to Anthony Davis, which is also a scary proposition because we don't know if AD is actually going to play or not, being questionable. But I love the price for Anthony Davis at 10-4 here. Pretty consistently giving you 60 plus, fantasy points. So Embiid AD for me. Obviously, if you want to save the risk, if Joel gets ruled out, play Joker instead. Now it's only $200 more to get to him, so it's not like a big price jump if you're already playing Embiid to pivot up the Nikola Jokic here. Sabonis was one of my favorite plays today. It hasn't changed too much with Fox being back in, but I would have loved him without Fox in the line, but $9,800.
Yeah, I agree on everything you said. The Davis situation. So this is perfect timing, Prince. Can we risk AD? And this is where being a DFS player beyond lock comes into play. You look at the landscape of the slate. There is a 10 p.m. game. There is a 10:30. That's where the Lakers game is. On FanDuel, it's harder because you don't have the util flexibility. If you're going to play Davis on DraftKings, you want to use him in your util because then we probably know in time. You'll have the option to pivot to Sabonis, to De'Aaron Fox,
Mm-hmm.
to LeBron if he plays in the util, and you'll be sitting really good if you're going to that late night window. If you have LeBron without Anthony Davis at the 10:30 game, probably at what 5% ownership, maybe
I mean, at
5%
that point, though, you
ownership.
just put Anthony Davis in your power forward spot, right? Because then it's a simple pivot down to LeBron James at the same position.
Yeah, but also like my thinking is putting him in the util is if we find out at 9:50 9:50 or so, Anthony Davis and LeBron in. I'm okay playing either of them. But
Sure.
are they better plays than like a De'Aaron Fox or Sabonis at their price points against Washington?
I mean,
I know the
Anthony
Knicks
Davis
defense
with
has been
LeBron James has gone for 60 plus.
correct. No, for sure. And the Knicks defense has been
And we saw Anthony Davis go for 80 without LeBron, and we've seen LeBron go
right.
for 70 without AD. So I mean,
I know, but my point is if they're both playing
sure.
and you don't have Anthony Davis in your util, then you lose the possibility if you wanted to move to the Washington Sacramento game
Sure.
to get to Sabonis and Fox. That's all.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's fine. Again, I think it all depends on how you want your roster build, and we're just talking that through. Like, if you're going in with Anthony Davis, being like, all right, if he gets ruled out, I'll just play LeBron. Obviously, the worst case scenario would be they both get ruled out, which would feel
util.
unlikely.
But
right.
util, and then you have the Sacramento.
Right.
That's it. Depending on how much you like the Sacramento spend ups, is your clear pivot. Hoping you get the news before the 10 o'clock window.
Right, exactly. And it depends on what you use for value tonight, right? You may have to eat that util spot just to get a value tier in there. So, moving our way down into the center spot as we go down to the mid tier. Vucevic still plays for me at 8K if there's no Joel Embiid. Chet Holmgren at 7,600 was somebody that I really liked on tonight's slate. And Jared Allen's coming off of a really big game.
Yeah, I mean, Chet has insane block upside when he puts like the scoring, the rebounding, the blocks together. I mean, he has a 50-point ceiling, 60 he's shown this year. So you can definitely get to Chet, Jared Allen. We talked about it. Like somebody's going to be the secondary scorer behind Donovan Mitchell on a night-to-night basis. Is it going to always be Jared Allen giving you 25 and 14? Probably not, because he's probably not going to go 12 of 14 every night. But Şengün does, leave a little bit to be desired defensively. So it's not the worst spot for Jared Allen. Yeah, I mean, those guys are good.
Okay. Any other guys down here in this mid-tier range? We know where the value is on tonight's slate. Like Capella being in, does that put you more interest on him than Agonku at $6,300 now? I know they've been playing together.
Yeah. Yep. They also been playing together. I wonder how that shakes out with them being like as healthy as they've been in some time.
Sure. Which also true, right? We'll see if that ends up holding true. Nick Richards is 61. Again, we expect him to play a whole bunch of minutes here tonight against Toronto. If that ends up being the case, maybe Jakob Poeltl has to play more minutes to hang out with Nick Richards in this game.
Yeah. Would Nick Richards, like the problem with like getting to either of those guys is that I'm looking at the ownership. This is scary, but like so is every kind of chalk play. It's Isaiah Jackson is now definitively the
I was working my way down there. We're gonna obviously, because of the lack of value on this slate, you're gonna find a lot of people going there, especially on FanDuel. On FanDuel, I think Isaiah Jackson's like 41 or something like that.
Oh
like
something
very cheap. If I'm making that up, let me know. But I thought he was
4,700. Oh my god, his ownership is
80. I just clicked 85% on FanDuel. Yep, that's it. That's the play. So maybe 60% on DraftKings. So I agree. I think you have to play that spot. Given the potential, the upside that he has, he's not like a zero floor guy. When he's on the floor, he's going to produce. It's just how long is he going to have to produce? And you and I kind of, we've used this comparison with a lot of guys. We talk about Tari Eason, and I've used it a lot. I'm like, think Montrezl Harrell back in the day, right? A guy comes off the bench for the Clippers, and is just a 1.6 fantasy point per minute monster for 19 minutes a game, Isaiah Jackson's basically been that guy when he comes off the bench. And now if you give him starter minutes, I mean, who's to say he can't go for 40 fantasy points tonight if he can stay out of foul trouble? If is the big word, because you look at his fouls and he's giving you 3 or 4 fouls while playing 19 minutes a night. So, you need him to, stay off the hands. Now, is Zubac going to put him in foul trouble? Is Daniel Tice going to put him in foul trouble? I don't know. But I do like Isaiah Jackson here in general.
It is incredibly interesting center because Isaiah Jackson is 5K. Marvin Bagley is going to start for $100 cheaper.
Sucks.
He is not the best. He is in a very good spot. He also had 22 and 11 against Atlanta earlier in the year, for what that's worth. Yeah. So he's now half the ownership of Isaiah Jackson.
You talking about pivoting down?
I'm just floating the facts in front of me. Sure. Not actually pivoting, but like floating the facts. You messaged me earlier and you were like, Richaun Holmes 3K, and I don't want to play Richaun Holmes 3K, but 10% of the field is looking at it like, man, I can't really figure out another way to find value. So like, it's one of those
we won't know, unfortunately, but like if Richaun Holmes is ruled in with Lively out, there's a chance they start Holmes. They had started Dwight Powell the other day, but that's because Holmes was out of the game in that one. So, just something to look at, right? Like, he hasn't been great, hasn't been the guy he had been in the past, but Wiseman's $4,100. So Wiseman got a whole bunch of garbage time in that last game, but he's been good 2 games in a row. If you think they get blown out, Wiseman's going to play a lot of minutes, it seems like.
So
no Durant, no. Now Wiseman's getting early rotation.
Yeah.
It's just that he also finished that game playing the final 12 or so minutes. So, if that game was more competitive, they may have subbed back in Bagley, and Wiseman wouldn't have played 28. He would have played 18,
Definitely more likely to play him on FanDuel, where he is not $5,900. That is, and like Sean said, our boy S. Penny, he does have multi-position eligibility over there, which, or no, he doesn't. He's center only. Sorry. Jackson has the power forward eligibility, of course, which is still. I mean, that's why he's Isaiah Jackson. He's only power forward on FanDuel. Isaiah Jackson
is he?
Yeah, only power forward.
Right, well, that's interesting. Well, there you go. You can play Isaiah Jackson power forward and get a different center in your lineup. That works out. All right, let's
Anthony Edwards in.
Yeah, and McDaniels. Let's build a lineup here.
All right, ready? Here's the Hornets active players.
Okay, you got a list?
Yes. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Wait, 1. All right. I'm just gonna read the players. Active players: Terry Rozier, Bryce McGowens, Brandon Miller, PJ Washington, Nick Richards, Ish Smith, JT Thor, Nick Smith Jr., Leaky Black, and James Bouknight. So 2, 4, 6, 8. So they have 10 active players.
And they're all guards.
And 7 of them are guards, yes.
All right, so I threw this lineup out here to start.
I do not want to play Bryce McGowens at 5,100. I don't.
That's fine. We'll go Jaden Ivey instead. Okay. Or would you rather play Ivy or Sasser if you had to pick one?
Ivy.
Sasser's been such a bucket, though.
He has been a very, very good player when he plays.
Ivy hasn't been when he plays sometimes.
No, he has not. But I would say we are definitely feel more comfortable with the Ivy minutes with Killian Hayes out. Also updating ownership right meow, everybody.
Okay. All right, so I got Ivy, Rozier, Miller, Washington, Jackson. We got 6,100. Let's get our Clippers in here. If we can even fit them all in here. So George, probably can't do them both.
No, I probably can't play both.
Would you rather get rid of Rozier and play Leonard? Because that will fit.
250 total in that game. Let's see what the field is betting it up to. 250 in some sports books, still 249.5. Actually, Clippers now 3.5-point favorites in that game. Charlotte up 12-point dogs now. The totals dropped 3.5 points in that game. I'd probably rather the Clippers. Santi.
Do a little Ivy, Miller, Leonard, Washington, Jackson, George, Williams, and Aldama. A little fair and balance.
Yeah.
Fair and balance build.
Yep. Yep.
Get $200 left over to play with if you guys wanted to do so. Could also, knock down one of those guys and play somewhere else. I mean, listen, like a $6,800 Brandon Miller is very expensive.
Yes.
We're just taking into account the consideration those who are not active for today. So,
yep.
I don't know if there was a different direction you would go there, but I feel like that's I'm okay, I guess, paying the premium. Would you rather a $6,800 Brandon Miller or a $7K Colin Sexton?
Probably Colin Sexton, but
well, I'm asking you. Who would you rather put?
Sexton, because there's also, like you mentioned, Charlotte's not necessarily lacking guard. Like Miller can play the forward. That's another thing. He's a big dude.
Yeah.
So he could also fill in. He's going to play 40 minutes. There's no way around it. He also just hasn't had, at this price, he has not topped 40 fantasy points. He's also not played with a team this.
I was going to say, it's been very difficult for him to get the usage that he's probably going to get.
Sure. I fully agree on that front, which is why, like, I wasn't objecting to Brandon Miller, like, but I definitely can tell you no Keontae George, no Jordan Clarkson in that backcourt, that Colin Sexton is going to have a lot of shot attempts and the ball in his hands quite a bit. But I guarantee Brandon Miller plays more minutes tonight. If that game stays semi-competitive, Brandon Miller plays more minutes than Colin Sexton.
Yeah, we got 139 fantasy point game as his ceiling, and this was the game where he came in and just took over. A 37 fantasy point game. He had 29 actual against the Knicks in this one. It's interesting. Again, I wonder. We have updated roster, you said, right? Where is there?
I am updating it currently.
What's Charlotte exposure in this game here? Still nobody really playing it. It's just all PJ Washington. So Miller's at 3%. I mean, if you wanted to be, is Sexton getting any rostership love here today? Sexton's getting 3% too. PJ is 16% for PJ Washington.
That makes sense. That makes sense that PJ would be like the highest owned guy because he's probably he's the cheapest of he's probably the most mispriced Hornet there is.
Sure.
PJ Washington.
All right, guys. So this is just an example lineup. Again, playbook's out. I'll be doing all the updates right after we get off here. So make sure you're in that Discord to get all the latest updates. And we'll be here till 7. Any more news breaks, we'll obviously have it for you. Playbook out there tomorrow. I think Grande, you want to playbook tomorrow? No? Somebody's on the playbook tomorrow, but John Morant's back. So be on the lookout for that show. We'll be back live at 5 o'clock Eastern for everybody. But till then, we'll catch you all later.